Daniel was not a weak man. He worked hard, spoke clearly, and believed he understood people well. But one thing always caused him trouble: his reactions. Whenever someone criticized him, ignored him, or spoke unfairly, Daniel reacted immediately. He explained, defended himself, and sometimes argued. After every argument, he felt tired and angry, even when he believed he was right. One morning, Daniel faced a situation that changed everything. At work, during a team meeting, his manager blamed him for a mistake that was not his fault. The words were sharp and public. Everyone was watching. Daniel felt heat rise in his chest. His heart beat faster. His mind prepared a long explanation. He knew the truth. He knew he could prove it. But something stopped him. For a second, Daniel stayed silent. That silence felt uncomfortable. It felt like weakness. His thoughts shouted, "Say something. Defend yourself." But instead of speaking, he took a slow breath. He looked at the table. He listened. The meeting continued. After it ended, Daniel walked back to his desk. His hands were still shaking. Inside, he felt confused. Why didn't I speak? He asked himself. Why did I stay quiet? Later that day, a colleague came to him privately. "You were right," she said. "The mistake wasn't yours." The manager realized it after checking the report. Daniel felt surprised, but also calm. For the first time, staying silent had protected him. That evening, Daniel thought deeply about what had happened. He realized something important. Not every situation needs a reaction. Not every accusation needs a reply. Silence, he understood, could be a form of control, not fear. Still, the idea felt new and strange. Daniel had always believed that strong people speak up immediately, but now he started to question that belief. He remembered moments from his past, arguments that damaged relationships, words spoken in anger, truth said at the wrong time. He asked himself a simple question: what if silence is not weakness, but strength? Over the next few days, Daniel began to observe himself. When someone interrupted him, he paused. When someone tried to provoke him, he breathed instead of reacting. At first, it was difficult. His emotions were loud. His ego wanted to win, but silence gave him space. In that space, he could choose his response instead of reacting automatically. One afternoon, while waiting for a bus, Daniel saw two men arguing loudly. People were watching. The argument grew stronger, but it went nowhere. No one was listening. Everyone wanted to be right. Daniel understood something clearly in that moment. Most people don't listen, they wait to speak. Silence, he realized, makes others reveal themselves. That night, Daniel wrote in his notebook, "Silence is not empty. It is full of understanding." He didn't know it yet, but this small change, this decision to stay silent, was the beginning of a deeper transformation. His mind was slowly learning calmness. His emotions were learning discipline. And his life was about to change, not because he spoke more, but because he learned when not to speak. After that first experience, Daniel began to notice something new about himself. His emotions were still there, but they no longer controlled him as before. When he stayed silent, he could feel his thoughts more clearly. It was as if his mind finally had space to breathe. One evening, Daniel met his old friend Mark at a cafe. Mark was always loud, always confident, and always liked to argue. During their conversation, Mark started criticizing Daniel's life choices, his job, his habits, even his calm behavior. "You are too quiet now," Mark said with a smile. "People will think you are weak." The old Daniel would have reacted immediately. He would have explained his decisions, defended his lifestyle, and tried to prove Mark wrong. But this time, Daniel did something different. He listened. He looked at Mark's face, his tone, his body language. Daniel noticed something he had never seen before. Behind Mark's confidence, there was insecurity. Mark was not attacking Daniel. He was protecting himself. Daniel took a slow sip of his coffee and stayed silent. The silence made Mark uncomfortable. He spoke more. He repeated himself. He became louder. Finally, he stopped and asked, "Why aren't you saying anything?" Daniel smiled calmly. "I'm listening," he said. That simple answer changed the energy between them. For the first time, Mark softened. He looked down and said quietly, "Sometimes I wish I could stay calm like you." In that moment, Daniel understood a powerful truth. Silence can reveal emotions, both yours and others. This was emotional intelligence. Daniel began reading about it. He learned that emotional intelligence is not about hiding feelings, but understanding them. When you react immediately, emotions control you. When you pause, you control your emotions. At work, Daniel practiced this skill daily. When emails sounded aggressive, he waited before replying. When coworkers complained, he listened without interrupting. He noticed that people started trusting him more. They spoke more honestly around him. Silence made him a safe space. But it wasn't always easy. One day, his manager again spoke unfairly to him. Daniel felt anger rise. His chest tightened. His thoughts raced. Silence felt painful. But he remembered one rule he had written in his notebook. Pause before power. He waited. Later, when emotions were calm, Daniel spoke privately with his manager. His words were clear, respectful, and strong. This time he was heard. Daniel realized something important. Silence does not mean you never speak. It means you choose the right moment. As days passed, Daniel felt lighter. Less stress, less regret, fewer unnecessary conflicts. His mind became quieter but stronger. He wrote another line in his notebook. Silence is not losing your voice. It is mastering it. Slowly, Daniel was becoming someone new, not louder, not more aggressive, but more aware. And this awareness was changing how people saw him and how he saw himself. As Daniel practiced silence more often, he discovered that his biggest enemy was not other people. It was his own ego. The ego wanted to react. The ego wanted to win arguments. The ego wanted to be seen as right, smart, and strong. Every time Daniel stayed silent, his ego felt hurt. Inside his mind, a voice whispered, "If you don't respond, they will think you lost." This inner battle was intense, especially in moments of disrespect. One afternoon, Daniel stood in line at a grocery store. A man behind him suddenly complained loudly, saying Daniel was too slow. People turned their heads. The old Daniel would have replied sharply. His ego was ready. But Daniel paused. He felt the anger, but he did not feed it. He focused on his breathing. The man continued complaining, but Daniel remained silent. After a moment, the man stopped. The tension disappeared. Daniel paid and walked away calmly. Outside, he realized something powerful. Silence starves the ego, both yours and others. When ego finds no reaction, it loses strength. That night, Daniel reflected deeply. He understood that most conflicts are not about truth. They are about ego. People want validation. They want control. They want to feel superior. Silence takes away that fuel. Daniel also noticed that silence made him more aware of his own mistakes. When he reacted less, he listened more. When he listened more, he learned more. His mind became a place of observation instead of judgment. However, silence did not mean fear. Daniel was not avoiding conflict. He was choosing peace over unnecessary battles. He remembered an old saying, "Not every fight deserves your energy." At work, a co-worker tried to blame Daniel for a delay. Daniel didn't defend himself immediately. He calmly asked questions instead. The truth came out naturally. No argument was needed. Daniel saw the pattern clearly now. When he stayed silent, others often exposed their intentions. His confidence grew. Not loud confidence, but quiet confidence. He no longer needed approval. He no longer needed to prove himself. One evening, Daniel wrote in his notebook, "My ego wants to react. My wisdom chooses silence." This shift changed his relationships. Friends respected him more. Strangers felt calmer around him. Even difficult people treated him differently. Daniel understood the secret. Silence is not passive. It is active self-control. And with every moment of silence, his inner strength grew stronger. As weeks passed, Daniel noticed a quiet change inside himself. His mind, once full of noise, became calmer. The constant need to respond, explain, or defend slowly disappeared. In its place came something new, inner peace. Silence gave Daniel clarity. When he stopped reacting to every situation, he could think more clearly. Problems that once felt heavy now seemed smaller. He realized that many worries were created by his own thoughts, not reality. One evening, Daniel walked alone in a park after work. The sky was dark, and the city's sounds were distant. For the first time in a long while, he felt fully present. No arguments replayed in his mind. No imaginary conversations. Just silence. And in that silence, he felt free. Daniel understood something important. A noisy mind creates suffering. A quiet mind creates solutions. Before, his thoughts would attack him at night. He would replay old conversations, regret his words, and imagine future conflicts. Now, silence had taught him how to let thoughts pass without holding them. He practiced observing his thoughts instead of becoming them. At home, when something went wrong, a broken item, a delayed message, Daniel noticed he no longer reacted with anger. He accepted the moment. This acceptance brought peace. People around him also noticed the change. "You seem calmer," his sister told him one day. "Nothing shakes you anymore." Daniel smiled. He knew it wasn't true that nothing shook him. He still felt emotions. But now, emotions didn't control his actions. Silence had created space between feeling and reaction. At work, when stress appeared, Daniel took short pauses. A deep breath. A moment of quiet. This simple habit helped him make better decisions. His productivity improved. His focus became sharper. Daniel wrote in his notebook, "Silence is where clarity lives." He realized that silence is not just about not speaking, it is about stillness inside. A mind that is calm can see clearly. A calm mind does not rush. It chooses wisely. One night, Daniel remembered how he used to believe that silence meant weakness. Now he laughed at that idea. He felt stronger than ever, not because he spoke louder, but because he listened to himself. Silence had become his safe place. And from that place, he was learning how to live with balance, patience, and control. Daniel soon realized that the real test of silence came in relationships. Staying silent when alone was easy. Staying silent with difficult people was not. One of the hardest relationships in Daniel's life was with his older brother, Alex. Alex was critical, impatient, and often spoke without thinking. Since childhood, their conversations usually ended in arguments. One weekend, Daniel visited his family. During dinner, Alex started criticizing Daniel's career choices in front of everyone. The words were sharp and familiar. Daniel felt the old anger rise again. This time, he noticed it. He felt the emotion, but he did not react to it. Daniel stayed silent. The table became quiet. Alex continued talking, expecting a response, a defense, a fight, but never came. After a few seconds, Alex's voice softened. The conversation slowly changed direction. Later that night, Alex came to Daniel privately. "I don't know why," Alex said, "but when you don't argue back, it makes me think." Daniel understood something powerful. Silence can stop emotional cycles. Many conflicts continue because both sides keep reacting. Silence breaks the pattern. In the following weeks, Daniel practiced silence in other relationships too. When a friend complained without listening, Daniel listened quietly. When someone tried to provoke him, he remained calm. He noticed that people either changed their tone or revealed their true nature. Silence acted like a mirror. Some people became respectful. Others became uncomfortable. Daniel learned an important lesson. Not everyone deserves your energy. By staying silent, Daniel protected his peace. He no longer tried to fix everyone or prove himself. He chose where to speak and where to step back. However, Daniel also learned balance. Silence was not avoidance. When something truly mattered, he spoke clearly and calmly. But he waited for the right moment. He wrote in his notebook, "Silence is my filter. Not everything passes through." Over time, his relationships improved. There were fewer arguments, fewer misunderstandings. People trusted him more because they felt heard. Daniel realized that silence is not about controlling others. It is about controlling yourself. And that control was giving him freedom. Silence was easy when life was calm. But Daniel knew the real challenge was staying silent under pressure. One day, Daniel faced one of the most stressful situations of his career. A major project failed, and the team was under serious pressure. Emotions were high. People were blaming each other. Fear filled the office. During an emergency meeting, voices became loud. Accusations flew across the room. Daniel felt stress tightening his chest. His mind wanted to react, to defend himself, to join the noise. But he remembered his rule. Pause before power. Daniel stayed silent. While others argued, Daniel observed. He listened carefully to every detail. He noticed what was being said and what was being ignored. The silence helped him think clearly while others lost control. When the room finally became quiet, the manager looked at Daniel. "What do you think?" she asked. Daniel spoke calmly. His words were simple, clear, and focused on solutions, not blame. He explained the real problem and suggested a practical plan. The room listened. No one interrupted him. In that moment, Daniel understood something deeply. Silence sharpens your words. Because he had stayed silent, his voice now carried weight. After the meeting, a co-worker said, "You stayed calm when everyone else panicked." That made a difference. Daniel realized that silence under pressure builds leadership. People trust those who remain calm when things go wrong. But silence was also a personal test. At home, pressure appeared in different forms: financial worries, deadlines, expectations. Daniel noticed his thoughts becoming loud again. Instead of reacting emotionally, he practiced silent reflection. He wrote, walked, or simply sat quietly. These moments of silence gave him strength. He learned that pressure does not disappear with noise. It disappears with clarity. Daniel wrote in his notebook, "When pressure rises, silence becomes my anchor." Slowly, he began to enjoy these moments. Silence was no longer uncomfortable. It became a source of power. Under pressure, Daniel was no longer reactive. He was responsive, and that difference changed everything. As Daniel continued his journey, he noticed something unexpected. The more he practiced silence, the more confident he became. Not loud confidence, not arrogant confidence, but quiet, unshakable confidence. Before, Daniel needed approval. He wanted people to agree with him, to understand him, to respect him. When they didn't, he felt the need to explain himself. Silence slowly removed that need. Daniel realized a powerful truth. When you respect yourself, you don't need to explain everything. One afternoon, Daniel received criticism on a project he had worked on for months. The feedback was not kind. His ego wanted to fight back. But this time, Daniel paused. He listened. He accepted what was useful. He ignored what was not. He did not defend himself. He did not argue. He thanked the person and moved on. Later, Daniel felt proud, not because he was right, but because he was in control. Silence had taught him self-respect. He also noticed how people treated him differently. When Daniel spoke less, his words carried more meaning. When he did speak, people listened carefully. Silence had given his voice value. At social events, Daniel no longer felt pressure to talk constantly. He was comfortable being quiet. He listened deeply. People felt heard around him, and naturally, they respected him more. Daniel understood something important. Confidence does not come from being loud. It comes from being grounded. Silence helped Daniel stay grounded. He began setting boundaries without arguments. If something didn't align with his values, he simply stepped away. No explanations, no drama, just quiet decisions. In his notebook, Daniel wrote, "My silence is my boundary." This new confidence changed how Daniel saw himself. He trusted his choices. He accepted himself without constant validation. Silence had removed the noise of doubt. For the first time in his life, Daniel felt complete, not because others approved of him, but because he approved of himself. And that self-respect made him stronger than ever. Daniel now understood silence deeply, but life still tested him. There were moments when words seemed necessary, moments when staying silent felt risky. Yet, again and again, silence proved to be stronger. One day, Daniel faced a serious misunderstanding at work. A rumor had spread about him. It was false, but it damaged his image. Friends advised him to explain himself publicly and defend his name. Daniel thought carefully. If he reacted emotionally, the drama would grow. If he stayed silent, the truth might speak on its own. He chose silence. Days passed. The rumors slowly lost attention. People moved on. Then, facts came out naturally. Those who mattered understood the truth, without Daniel saying a single word. Daniel learned another powerful lesson. Silence allows truth to surface. Words can confuse. Silence gives time. In another moment, Daniel was insulted online by someone he didn't even know. Before, he would have responded immediately. Now he smiled and closed the app. The insult had no power without a reaction. Silence protected his energy. Daniel noticed that people who provoke often seek reaction, not truth. When silence denies them that reaction, they lose interest. This realization freed him. Silence was no longer a defensive tool. It was a strategic choice. At the same time, Daniel learned to listen to silence itself. When making decisions, he stopped rushing. He sat quietly with his thoughts. He allowed answers to come naturally. Some of his best decisions were made in silence. He wrote in his notebook, "Words create noise. Silence creates direction." Daniel also noticed how silence changed conflicts. When he remained calm and quiet, aggressive people often softened. Silence disarmed them. Not every situation needs explanation. Not every accusation needs defense. Silence filters what truly matters. Daniel's life became simpler. Less drama, less stress, more focus, more peace. And in that quiet strength, he felt powerful, not over others, but over himself. Daniel believed he had learned silence well. But life had one final test for him, a moment where silence would be harder than ever before. One evening, Daniel received unexpected news. A close colleague, someone he trusted, had taken credit for Daniel's work in front of senior management. This time, the situation felt dangerous. His reputation was at risk. His future opportunities depended on how he reacted. Daniel felt anger, disappointment, and sadness at the same time. His mind was loud again. For the first time in months, silence felt heavy. Is this the moment to speak? He asked himself. Or is silence still the right choice? Daniel did not react immediately. That night, he slept little. Instead of sending angry messages or making public accusations, he stayed silent and thought carefully. He reviewed facts. He gathered proof. He waited for his emotions to settle. The next day, calmly and respectfully, Daniel requested a private meeting with his manager. He did not attack. He did not accuse emotionally. He spoke with clarity and evidence. Because he had stayed silent before speaking, his words were powerful. The manager listened carefully. The truth became clear. The issue was resolved fairly. Daniel walked out of the office feeling something new, not victory, but peace. He realized the final lesson of silence. Silence is not about never speaking. It is about speaking from control, not emotion. If Daniel had reacted immediately, he might have damaged his image. If he had stayed silent forever, the truth might have been lost. But because he balanced silence with timing, he protected himself. That balance was wisdom. Daniel wrote in his notebook one last time, "Silence gives me time. Time gives me power." He understood now that silence is a skill, not a rule. It requires awareness, patience, and courage. And through this final test, Daniel knew he had truly mastered it. Months passed, and Daniel's life looked very different from before. Not because his world had changed, but because his mind had. Silence had become a natural part of him. He no longer forced it. He no longer counted seconds before speaking. Silence was now his default state, calm, aware, and strong. Daniel noticed that his days felt lighter. He woke up with less stress. His thoughts were organized. He focused better at work and enjoyed simple moments more deeply. People around him felt the change too. Friends described him as calm and wise. Co-workers trusted his judgment. Even difficult people treated him with more respect. Silence had reshaped how he showed up in the world. Daniel understood the final truth. A calm mind is a powerful mind. When challenges appeared, he faced them without panic. When criticism came, he listened without anger. When success arrived, he accepted it without ego. Silence kept him balanced. One morning, Daniel sat quietly with a cup of coffee, watching the sunrise. There was no rush, no need to prove anything. In that moment, he felt complete. He reflected on the journey he had taken, from constant reactions to conscious responses, from noise to clarity. Daniel smiled. He knew silence had not made him invisible. It had made him unbreakable. Before closing his notebook for the last time, he wrote one final sentence. Silence is not the absence of power. It is the source of it. And with that understanding, Daniel stepped forward into his life, calm, focused, and free.